Hi guys, welcome to the first official episode of Coconut Drops. I'm your host Cassie and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about, at least I'm going to be talking about, and you're going to be listening because that's how podcasts work. And it's kind of weird. I actually admit at the beginning I thought starting a podcast was stupid, but I'm bored and I also just like talking, and a lot of the things that I would like to say I don't always say, and I feel like this is a great way to get it out there. And also for a way to bring awareness to a lot of topics that I find interesting or important to my life. So my first topic of today is what it is like to be alive, to exist in a multicultural ethnic family in a Mennonite space. So if a lot of you don't know, Mennonites is a Christian group, a Christian denomination off of the Protestants, if I recall correctly. I think Amish light. I really hate to use that comparison because the Amish and I've been involved in both. The Amish and the Mennonite world are like similar to the casual onlooker, but the worlds are so different. But think of if my family finds this, they're going to laugh and they're going to make fun of me. Honestly, they are. But think of it as Amish light. So yes, a lot of them would cover their heads, dress conservatively, but we did have total access to the internet, total access to the technological advances that are considered normal today. So yeah, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, I was adopted into this family, and mind you, this isn't it wasn't necessarily ideal. So by the time that I can remember, I had flip-flopped between living with my mom, living in the foster care system before I finally ended up with them. And at the time I was 9 years old. So I had a lot of memory about what it was like living in a Black and Indian home. I'm predominantly Black American, heavy on my Trinidadian and Tamil roots. I had a lot of memory about living in a different environment to that, and so shifting into that as somebody who was just becoming cognitive, I think it did a lot of brain damage because look at me now. It did a lot to me psychologically. So when I first lived with my now adopted parents, it wasn't nearly as much of an issue because at the time we were living in a community where that was considered normalized. My parents were part of an organization that fixtured a lot on taking care of incarcerated parents, taking care of them and their kids, and if possible reuniting them. But that wasn't my case, and so I ended up being adopted along with my little brother, and for a while that was considered normal. And then when I was in middle school, my mom's parents were getting old, and because familial ties are extremely important in the Mennonite fixture, my mom decided that she's going to pack our whole family. And I say my mom because my dad he's not the most assertive person. He just goes along with the flow. And so we packed up all our belongings and we moved all the way across the United States into the East Coast, which is okay because New York is like home for me. But to Pennsylvania, okay, to Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, and Mifflin County, and hot spots for Amish and Mennonite culture in the East Coast, besides a few other well-known communities like Ohio. But we moved to the Mifflin County area, and that was a culture shock for me. Number one, I was not used, and I don't think I could truly get used to a homogenized rural community. It's so different. It's so rare, honestly, in the United States, especially with the direction where we're going, where everything's becoming commercialized, to find a community that isolated in, well, maybe it's not, maybe it won't be it's not like that towards the west, but especially in Pennsylvania, it was just so different for me to adjust to something like that. They send us to a private Christian school, and besides myself and my little brother, there were 2 other kids of color. Now, my sisters are Hispanic, so I guess, yeah, we gotta count them because obviously, oh my god, Latinas. Besides my siblings and I, there were like 2 or 3 other people at that school who were like not white. And I know people will say like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It is actually a lot bigger deal, especially if you were cognitive when you were taken from your home and you were thrown into an environment like not even that long afterwards where everybody looks and talks and acts the same. It's crazy work. It is crazy work. I think it traumatized me a lot because I'm a person who thrives on environments that are lively and energetic and bustling. I'm a city girl. New York City, Denver, those are my homes. Okay, that's home to me. And so being thrown into a community that was partially isolated and then extremely homogenous was shocking. On top of that, it was these Mennonites, Christians, right? They tended, and I'm not in any way saying that they're horrible people because I learned a lot and I appreciate what I did learn, but it was very legalistic and I'm a person who really hates legalism, and I actually might talk about that in another episode. But I found it very hard to abide by the rules, and that's probably explains why I went through like a goth punk era against my parents. Well, at one point, like maybe 14, 15, like I just could not. I could not do it. But I had a hard time adjusting to that. Very conservative, very isolated. That's the one word I could think of. And it affected my mental health a lot. And like, not the positive way, obviously. I don't even know why I said obviously. Because I don't think a lot of people could tell that I am mentally unwell, which is like sad. But yeah, and I'm a person that thrives not being in the norm. I do, and my friends will tell you that I like being a little bit, I don't even want to use the word quirky because I feel like that word's getting gentrified because of TikTok, but I like being a little different because I think there's something beautiful about uniqueness, and that was the thing that was so difficult for me living there, was I could not find any sense of uniqueness. There, like, and I know some of the people there were very unhappy because I know that they're like, some of my cousins on like that side, like they were kind of rebellious and they would see how much they could get away with it, but I didn't care as much, and I think that's partially why I may have put a target on my back in some of these things. But then on top of that, I think for me personally, it was harder for me to adjust, and maybe for my brother as well, because we are very, like, I think we're like a year and a half apart, but it was hard for us to adjust into that environment because we were already at a point when we had moved. I was maybe like 12-ish. I was kind of at a point where I had already developed my personality and I wasn't willing to change it. I already knew who I was and what I liked, and so I was always at odds with my parents and the people that lived in that environment. There were some positives. I got to know my parents' family very well, but I also felt extremely lonely because, okay, family ties are super important in the Mennonite community. And so hard to believe, but foster care and adoption is still a fairly new concept, and I think that and it's sad, but it's also a really good thing as well. But I had a hard time relating to a lot of the kids there when I was going through school, because I felt like I had aged a lot faster than some of them. And if I would express it to my mom, she'd either call me crazy, or she would just dismiss it and tell me just to be kind, which I'm like, that's not very helpful. But I had a hard time relating to them, and I did make really good friends. I had one good friend that I can actually, two, and they were actually my cousins, and those were like the only two. Shout out to you, Nicole and Kiara. But those were like the only two that I could actually get along with. It's crazy to me, because a lot of people that don't know the ins and outs of Anabaptist, conservative Anabaptist culture, they tend to romanticize it a little bit. But that isolation comes with a deep sense of loneliness and rigidity and genetic disorders. I'm not even joking. There were times where my brother and I would get in trouble for making jokes about inbreeding, but it's true. There's a lot of inbreeding in a lot of these circles. There's a rigidity and a masking that just felt unreal to me, that I just couldn't adjust to. And for a while, my family and I, especially my parents, we would buck heads about these kind of things, because the way that they were raised in these communities was to value tradition. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, where if you value tradition, well, no, that wouldn't be very nice to say. If you value tradition, you wouldn't have bothered to adopt interracially in the first place. It is true. It's not kind, but I know it's true. And so to be that difference maybe was like traumatizing to them, and maybe a bit of, I genuinely think I'm a disappointment. But I actually don't take any shade in it. I actually think that's kind of, I actually genuinely think that's like funny in a very sad kind of way, that I actually might be like the family's disappointment. Maybe not. Maybe it's my brother. Like, he does like more bizarre things than I do, but I seem to be the one who gets in trouble for it the most, which I think that's a symptom of being an eldest daughter. But yeah, people glamorize the lifestyle of the Amish and the Mennonites, and there are so many things that you have to be there to understand it. And one of my closest friends, she's like a decade older than me, but I do not even care. She's more Gen Z than millennial, but then at the same time, I think I'm more millennial than Gen Z, and she and I are like really, really close. But there are a lot of things that like she even observes and that she knows. They put so much importance on tradition, and I think tradition is a beautiful thing. I think it can be, but after a while you start losing a sense, a touch of yourself, and you, personally for me, I saw it all as fictitious and a facade for a lot of other undercurrent issues that were going on in these communities. And it's sad, because there are some genuinely wonderful people out there that in these communities that want to try to do their best and live according to the way that they know that they are called to in life. But when you know how some of these communities can be, it kind of puts a whole taint on the whole thing, and it just took all the joy out from me. So yeah, I was traumatized. It's okay now. I think I'm doing a lot better. I'm deconstructing, and I'm a lot better. I just feel like this is such a niche thing. It's so niche. And I think some of the way that I'm deconstructing was because of one of the girls that was at the school there that I had attended that was Amish Mennonite. she was like just as rebellious, but I think she was more open and brazen about it. Like, she's not anywhere close to being conservative as she was brought up, which is cool. I respect her for that, because obviously I'm not that. Oh my, it's not flattering. It's not flattering to think about. I was an ugly child, and then we had to wear like these cape dresses, which I think some people can really pull them off, and I hated them with a passion. I felt like I was wearing a costume, and it wasn't a fun costume. It was because if I didn't fit in, I would be more isolated than I already was. And like I mentioned before, I already felt extremely isolated in this community. And my mental health was so bad. And I already have like an episode planned on this, but the mental health awareness in these communities it's awful. It's bad. It's terrible. It's so laughable. But my mental health in those situations were so like down the gutter that I'm glad that I had to actually take a chance and realize, I actually need to deconstruct from this kind of mindset. But I also think that a part of it was because I was on survival mode from the time that I was pulled out of my home, my foster home, to the time that I was put into my now parents' home, and then taking the move out of metropolitan living to more of a rural community, a homogenous, strictly religious community. I was on survival mode, and I was old enough to understand who I was and what I liked and what I knew about myself, but also like too young to actually rationalize half of the things that were happening in my little brain that had no frontal lobe development whatsoever. I was in survival mode, which is sad, because now I actually can't get out of it. It's okay though. It's perfectly fine. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm doing fine. I think. I'm trying my best. I don't even know. And like, being a Mennonite is no joke. Like, you actually have a crazy reputation to uphold, because like I said, people romanticize it. And so legalism. And so you have to put up this facade that you're like perfectly peaceable, gentle, disciplined people. But like, I will tell you up front now that there are a lot of them that I would know that would actually like genuinely might like I think they love their lifestyle, but they would actually like pop off if they were not Mennonite. I had this teacher, his name was Mr. Peachy. Like, that Peachy, by the way, is like the most typical Mennonite last name. Like, he was the coolest man. He was so freaking conservative, but like, he would have popped up as a politician or somewhere up there. It's like insane. Some of these people, it takes a lot of dedication to be in any like offshoot. I say offshoot because it even during like the Reformation period and all of that, when Protestantism was like becoming hot, like the Mennonites were even persecuted by the Protestants, even though they technically were Protestants. They were persecuted by the Catholics, I think by some Orthodox. I think the Orthodox were the only ones. Orthodox and Calvin, I don't even remember. Guys, there were some, like, they were not well loved. They were not well loved people. And so, yeah, they have this beautiful, this reputation of being hardworking and disciplined and gentle. For a while, a lot of them were pacifists, non-resistant. I like that word a lot better. A lot of them were non-resistant. The idea of non-resistance is not to be involved in voting or going to war. Some of them are against fighting back, self-defense. Some would go to that extent. I know that the church that I attend, that my parents and I attended, like, and I don't even know if it's the church now. I'd have to ask. Maybe like my friends from the church would like drop a comment and tell me for sure. I know like they would not participate in these things, but like now, since they like morphed and become more like politically aware, like some of them actually vote and like carry firearm, concealed carry or whatnot, and would serve in the military. And there are so many different branches. But anyway, all of that to say, I think I turned out okay, but I would not do it again. Props to you if you want to pursue that. I genuinely think it's a noble thing to pursue in anything to that pious level, but it caused me a lot of confusion and heartache about who I really wanted to become in the future. Anyway, I'm actually genuinely running out of things to say, so I will see you in the next episode. I have an idea of what I'm going to be saying in the next episode, because this is going to get into some nitty-gritty personal things, and I just like to yap. I hope you guys are having a good rest of your day, night, whatever time it is. Take care, and I love you more than life itself. And I do not have much of a life. I'm kidding. Anyway, bye-bye. Mwah.